Hey, what's up you guys? My name is Josh. Welcome back to another toy review, and today we're finally here to take a look at the Godzilla vs. Kong Godzilla with Radio Tower. So finally, we're going to kick off the Monsterverse line. So of course, it only makes sense that we take a look at the very first wave based off of the fourth Monsterverse film. I mean, it only makes sense because this is pretty much where it kind of all began. So obviously, you guys know me. I like to add context and sort of explain a little bit of the backstory behind not just the creation, but also the story itself before I talk about the figure. So I'm going to try and make this as quick as possible. Basically, these figures are based off of sort of the current Godzilla films, the Godzilla and Kong films, by Legendary Pictures. Well, I think they're called, well, whatever. You get the idea, basically. I mean, not to be confused with how Toho, they still make their films, of course, once in a while with the recent Godzilla -1. So basically, this all started back around like late 2019, where it was kind of revealed that Playmates was going to be making Godzilla figures. Obviously at first they were making figures very similar to the Bandai Creations and all that, and eventually it did expanded in the toy line that we all know now. Obviously not exactly, because at first it just started off as Godzilla vs. Kong, and it wasn't until like somewhere around 2021 or 2022 is when they decided to officially call the toy line the Monsterverse line, where now we started getting figures based off of other movies. And of course, not counting TV shows, there are 5 films as of now. You have the 2014 Godzilla movie, the Kong Skull Island film that came out in, I believe, 2017, Godzilla King of the Monsters, which came out in 2019, Godzilla vs. Kong, which was originally supposed to premiere back in 2020, but unfortunately due to the pandemic and all that, it was delayed for about a year, so it ended up coming out in 2021. Now we got the current the current one coming out towards the end of March, Godzilla and Kong, the New Empire. And oh boy, I can't wait to take a look at that. And of course, obviously, I'm going to take a look at those toys as well. But I thought I'd talk about the one that kind of started it all. Let's take a look at the first wave of the figures. And of course, this is the Godzilla with Radio Tower. So of course, I'm going to move my camera just a little bit just to kind of take a look at this figure. Now, I did review him a long time ago on my first YouTube channel, but obviously a nice little update. It's not so bad once in a while, and I know you guys were very excited to take a look at this. I am too, because obviously you guys know me, I love Godzilla, so why not? I mean, obviously this is like the perfect toy line for this, and they've made so many figures. I mean, obviously I'm not going to be able to get through all of them within a month or so, because the movie is like literally right around the corner. That very, very like anticipated film for sure. But obviously, let's talk a little bit about the big old G right here. And sorry if my camera's a little bit messy. Well, my tripod, I should say. It's kind of broken. So this is, of course, based off of how he looked in Godzilla vs. Kong. Obviously, his design is very similar to how he appeared back in his 2014 debut, with the exception of his dorsal fins, his spikes on his back, basically, where they have changed very slightly. So it doesn't look exactly like how he looked back in the 2014 movie, but obviously you could kind of see how they were trying to sort of mimic the style of almost the older Godzilla films, where he definitely had like those very funny looking like big ass plates. So that's pretty cool that they initiated that within the film. I mean, not the film figure, but you get the idea. It does look pretty cool, though. I mean, it does look kind of weird from this angle, because it's pretty obvious that they just kind of plastered it onto the figure, as you can see with this very weird seam. But at least it kind of makes sense. It's not bad or anything like that. It's not like on the side where the seam is very, very noticeable, but it's not the worst thing in the world, and I won't really give the figure any crap for it, because I generally do like the way it looks. It captures it perfectly. I mean, this is great. Well, almost perfect with those goofy ass eyes, but we'll talk about that in a minute, because, I mean, one thing I do want to mention is that even though the sculpt is perfect, I mean, it looks just like him, and it's nice that he's pre-posed, but, he could still stand pretty good for the most part. You got that one little leg kind of stretching out, and you got this one, so it's nice and cool that they gave him a pose. Of course, you got the tail. As you can see, just move that right there. And of course, when you get them in the package, it does come off detached, and you do have to put it on. For the most part, it does fit in pretty nicely. I haven't had any issues with it. Nice and solid. I forgot to mention, these figures are pretty good in quality, despite it technically being a harder plastic. Pretty much, how do I say it? The way that these figures are kind of molded too, it's not like anything like towards like the Ninja Turtle figures. Like the consistency and like the way they feel. Definitely a little bit on like sort of the harder side, but it's all good, you know, because at least they got all of the detail right down. Like, well, I wouldn't really call it 100% good, but it gets the job done. You could pretty much tell right away where all the, you know, the bumps and all the cracks are, you know. And I've also noticed how like on his neck, as you could kind of see a little bit here, all the nice little details we got there, and pretty much all over the body you can see all his weird scales, which is very nice, with the exception of the side, where for some odd reason it looks like a little blurry, a little bit. It's hard to really explain for sure. I don't know if that's like a render issue. I'm not exactly sure why it looks like that, but don't get me wrong, he's not the only Godzilla figure to kind of have that, you know. And of course, that's not counting the details a little bit towards like the tail right here. I wouldn't really count that as a mistake, because you could obviously see the difference and where it all kind of lies down. So you could got his nice little wrinkles at the bottom here, and then of course you got the weird like elongated texture. You know, at least you could kind of tell what they were going for. So I do love the consistency that they have, where it's like super wrinkle, and then like little by little they kind of scale it down, which is great. That just shows you how magnificent his design is too, and it's great how it's evolved so much. Ironic considering, you know, the new film with his evolved form, but I won't talk too much about that. I just want to focus a little bit more on the figure. So of course, let's take a little bit of a closer look. So we're actually going to start from the bottom for once. I know I usually start from the top, because I do want to talk a little bit how I'm actually glad that they actually did painted his toenails, which is pretty nice. You know, it's a not a dark gray, but it's like a sort of darkish kind of grayish color. I also forgot to mention that even on the legs, I know that my camera probably can't really capture too well, but he does got some nice little like gray stains around, which makes sense because this figure, for some odd reason, he's very blue. Now, like I say, you don't really see it like that. For some odd reason, it looks like he's more on a very light gray. But I can assure you, yeah, he's like in a very weird kind of like bluish color, which I'm not complaining at all. I think it's fine. I mean, it ironically fits the advertisement, because in a lot of the, you know, Playmates toys advertisements for the, you know, these figures, for some odd reason they depicted Godzilla very, very blue. And obviously the face is of no exception, not counting the eyes, but it's just to kind of show you an example as to how the paint goes with his skin, and of course the texturing. But like I say, it doesn't mess with the sculpt or anything at all. It's still a really, really nice looking figure, and it's pretty interesting how they managed to do it, especially around the 5 or 6 inch route. I'm pretty sure this is 6 inches. I'm not sure. I probably should have grabbed the ruler. These figures, they might look huge, while honestly, Godzilla, he's a big boy. I mean, the only reason why, obviously, is because of his tail, but you get the point. But it does look rather beautiful for sure. And honestly, I don't really have too many complaints. I really don't. It definitely fits the narrative, and it looks exactly like what you would expect from a Monsterverse Godzilla, obviously. So then, of course, we got the tail. Got the tip of it. So like I say, it's in that sort of blue color. And so if we're talking like length and height, I would definitely say that the tail definitely fits pretty good for how he is. It definitely matches up pretty well. So it's not too short, not too long, just about right. And then of course, I love how the blue, it gets even like lighter within the middle. It's supposed to obviously give the impression that he's going to shoot his atomic breath, or his heat ray as they call it, but unfortunately this figure does not come with it, even though his mouth is actually open, and he actually does have a hole under somewhere around like his like underneath his mouth. I can't really seem to focus on it a little bit, but you get the point. Maybe if I stop moving the figure around a little bit, if I point maybe towards this angle, you can't really tell all that well, but there is a hole in there. Obviously, that's to fit the piece, but the only accessory he does come with is, of course, the radio tower, and I'll definitely get to that. So I said a lot of good things about this figure. Now, let's get to, well, there's not really too much bad, but I think I've already pointed it out a lot, and it's mostly in the face area. So let's talk about that. Yeah, I'm not a... Not exactly sure what happened here and with his face. I mean, it's not. Who am I kidding? Okay, that's pretty much the weakest point of the figure. I mean, a lot of people's complained about like his action feature because not with the current state of the figures, but a lot of the older ones, they have this battle feature where you can actually tear apart the skin. So it's a battle damage, which I think it's cool. But a lot of people complain about how stupid it is, even though I think it's kind of creative. And as you can see, sort of the lining of the piece you're supposed to take out. I'll show more of that towards the end. But I would say what hurts this figure a lot is the face. I'm not exactly sure what went wrong. I mean, not counting the mouth is painted horribly. I mean, just look at the way it is, like how his teeth is settled down. The sloppy paint, as you can see right here. I mean, the bottom one, not too bad. It's the top one that's definitely, yeah, Godzilla. I don't know how to say this nicely, but you need to go see a dentist, man. I mean, come on. If you're going to be in more movies, you might as well fix those teeth. But the eyes is the biggest killer. It's like they're just painted on there, and I'm like, damn. I mean, I honestly, kind of reminds me of me a little bit, literally with my painting class. Like, we had to do a portrait recently, and it's like, I got everything else perfect, except for my eyes, which looks like crap, but whatever. I'm not trying to bleed into real life here, I'm just saying. His eyes are painted, of course, in orange color, which it's kind of questionable. I mean, does Godzilla really have much of an eye color, to say the least? I mean, at least they're trying to be somewhat creative, but it is still pretty weird, but it is what it is. I mean, it's a bit unfortunate, and yeah, I mean, not every Godzilla figure has this issue, but a good majority of them do, so take that with a grain of salt, because honestly, I really love this figure. It's great, and I do highly suggest getting it if you don't have them so far. Kind of ironic that I'm already giving him the final review, even though I didn't even go over his accessories yet, but or his articulation. But I'm just saying, don't let the whole weird sloppy face thing take away from this really nice figure. So, of course, let's go over the articulation. So the figure has about at least 7 points of articulation. So of course the head can kind of move. I mean, I don't know if you guys can hear this. Yeah, I'm not sure if you really wanna. I mean, it kind of nudges a little bit. You probably can turn it around, but like I really don't want to break the figure, you know. And then of course the jaw moves. You know, you could keep it open. You could close it if you want. His arms can move. I mean, can't really do much with that, but okay, it is what it is. I mean, you know, the legs do move, so if you want, you can like make him run. You know, you can make him run like in the recent trailer. Well, not in the recent one, but like the first trailer of the Godzilla and Kong New Empire film, where people were going crazy over him running, even though it's literally not the first time, but you get the idea. Tail is on a ball joint, so it's kind of does have a bit of a whip to it. And you know, the more I think about it, I really do love the positioning of the tail. Like you can literally like make him like whip, you know, like whip Kong's ass with it, like you know what I mean? Do like a grand slam or something. You know what I mean? So this figure is very creative, as you guys can see. The only thing, obviously, is the feet. They got the line thing going on, so they give the impression that you probably can move them. But it's so tight and it's so rough, I don't even count it. I can move it maybe a little bit, but it's so hard to move it. I rather not. But like I say, at least he does stand up nicely and he won't have any issues. So I don't think we have anything to worry about. So it might seem like he's limited, but it kind of makes sense for his stature, you know, with the way he is and his positioning, and of course he's posed. So pretty decent on the articulation. Now, mind you, this is sort of the main staple for most Godzilla figures. Most of them do have the exact same articulation, so does Kong to an extent. So just kind of keep that in mind when we review the future figures. So let's go over two of his accessories. Now we're going to take a look at the radio tower, which looks nice. I mean, obviously, it looks kind of weird. Honestly, it looks more like an oil rig than anything else. It doesn't really look too much like a radio tower, but it gets the impression, so it's okay. Obviously, you got some extra plastic here and there to kind of help make it stand, because obviously that's kind of why it's giving off a very weird immersion. And of course, you got the bottom part where it's, you know, I love how, like, a piece of it. You see how it's kind of squished, but it actually still stands up pretty nicely, surprisingly. So that's pretty good. It comes in a silver kind of color, and of course with some red. So that's pretty good. You got some accessories that are painted. You know what I mean? You don't really expect that too much coming from Playmates. You know what I mean? And it's pretty decent. Obviously, if I just kind of take Godzilla out of the way, just to kind of show you how it is, looks very nice. Actually, it's probably better if I kind of show you a little bit, the detailing with it and some of the kind of weirdness going on. I think you guys are starting to see why it kind of reminds me of an oil rig, but you get the point. Now, does he use this at any time in the movie? No. Not that I could think of. I mean, I don't know. He probably did use a radio tower at some point, but not that I know of. Mind you, I haven't even gotten the chance to really see Monarch, so take that with a grain of salt. So whatever. It does look pretty cool though. I like it because it's a structure. It's a piece of a building. You can even see like where he's supposed to hold it, but that's kind of the issue with the figure. He doesn't really exactly hold it all that well, which kind of makes me wonder, is there a right or wrong way of him holding it? Because it really doesn't work. I mean, it's possible. He can hold it. Possibly. I mean, we tried, folks. We really did. But you could fit in his other hand too. I don't think there's a right or wrong way of him holding it. I think it just really depends on how you want to pose him. But obviously it does look a little weird. Honestly, it makes more sense if maybe he was like, oops, sorry. It makes sense if he was maybe like swinging it. But the grip on his hands, it's really not that great to insinuate that. So you can try. It's definitely possible, and you can be creative with it. But I don't think there's a real right or wrong way of him holding it. But obviously, it's not the best accessory. It's definitely one of the more weaker ones. But I'm glad he came with this, so I'm not upset. And plus, it really is just something for him to kind of bash over. So who really cares, if I'm being honest? Also, let me just fix this a little bit so we could go over his other accessory. Now, technically, they don't really come with more than one. Most figures usually come with at least one or two. But if you want to count this as an accessory, if you're watching this, you're not probably shouldn't. You're about to see some gore. 3, 2, 1. Oh. Ooh, I'm sorry, Godzilla. I had to do that. Oh, look at that. We've revealed even more detail. This poor man's chest was literally striked right off. Look at that. Showing off his ribs. You got the redness to show the blood. I mean, that's... Oh, come on. How is this a bad feature? That's kind of cool. I mean, okay, maybe like in the long run, it does get overplayed a lot. Because, like I say, even the most recent figures don't usually utilize this no more. It's kind of cool to kind of see, and as you can see, it took a chunk out of him. We took out some of his meat. And I mean, you got a piece of his chest right there. It looks like a... If I could focus on it a little bit, it looks like a thunderbolt. I can't be the only one, honestly. It looks so weird. Look at the inside. I mean, wow. I mean, again... Points for creativity. I do like it that they at least try to give you some variety within some play. So when you're fighting with your other monsters, at least, you can pretend that he's getting his chest sliced off. Oh, come on. If this happened to him for real, he would die. Like, oh, dear Lord. I mean, if you guys watch the movies, you kind of know what I mean. And trust me, the movies are very brutal when it comes to their fights. So we could put it back in. It's possible. For some odd reason on other figures, I've definitely seen it from a lot of people that they're either really easy to put on or really hard to take off. I don't know why. And then of course you got the opening right here that kind of shows you where you're supposed to rip it apart. So yeah, so finally, before we end the video, we of course gotta do a size comparison. Alright, so finally, here he is compared to the big monkey. Big gorilla Kong with the battle axe. Of course, this is going to be the next figure that we're going to be taking a look at. Obviously, I kind kind of went ahead and ripped off his shoulder. It just I kind of showed it off a little bit, and of course, just to kind of give you an idea on the sizing, and it looks about right for the most part. I think it does. Some people might argue otherwise, but I think it's okay. I think the sizing makes sense for what it is. I mean, Godzilla obviously is technically supposed to be pretty huge. He's been around a lot more than Kong, but just to kind of give you a wow. I mean, like Goldori Flaka right here. Look at that shit. That's just funny. But he looks really cool though. I can't wait to take a look at him. I was debating if I was gonna look at either this one or the one without the axe because I do have that. And yes, this is not a hip swap thing. They actually did made a separate figure with him without the axe, but he does include another accessory, so don't worry about that. And then of course, I guess why not? Just as a little bonus, here's Scar King because I didn't film it, but I did manage to snag him when I went to Target on Monday. Although I didn't film it, I did post it though in a tab, just to kind of give you an idea how he looks because I'm kind of reviewing these figures in order, so you're probably not going to see a review of him for a while, so I just thought I'd kind of show him off anyway, just to kind of give you the idea. I mean, he looks intimidating, but he looks pretty cool. So, of course, we're going to take that out of the way. So, yeah, that's about it. So that finally wraps up the toy review for Godzilla with Radio Tower, and honestly, I like this figure a lot. There's a lot of variants, obviously, and there's still a lot more to go, because mind you, this is only the first wave. So yeah, I mean, I'm somewhere between like maybe like a 9 or a 9.5 out of 10. Obviously, my biggest complaint is of course the face, which unfortunately doesn't really improve. But paint, sculpt, accessories, very solid. And I can't wait to take a look at all the other figures. That's pretty much what my plan is for the next couple of weeks, is to mostly focus on just Monsterverse figures, but do not worry. There will be like Ultraman stuff when in the future and all that, but just for now, this is what we're doing only because of the new movie coming out, which I'm excited for. I hope you guys are too. And I also hope you enjoyed this toy review. I know it's been sort of a long, it took a while, but we're finally getting there. I'm going to take a look at Kong next time, and that's about it. So if you guys enjoyed the toy review, leave a like and subscribe if you want. I do have a playlist of, my toy reviews and all that. I know some people do kind of ask me about that. Trust me, go take a look at my channel. Look for any of the weird, crazy shit I upload. So, yeah, that's about it. See ya.